Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving straight into a high-yield board review on telescope optics, and I am absolutely thrilled you're here. We are establishing our clinical mastery framework right from the start. We're going to take concepts that might seem like dry textbook physics and transform them into intuitive clinical tools. Tools that you'll actually use in your low-vision clinics and, for sure, use to absolutely crush your OCOP and written boards. We aren't just memorizing equations today, guys. We're learning the anatomy and the physiology of optical systems so you truly understand them inside and out. Let's get to it. But first, let's start with some active recall to test your baseline knowledge before we build out our optical system. Imagine an object way out at infinity. The light rays coming off of it are perfectly parallel. Now, they hit a single plus lens. Where exactly do those rays focus? Take a second, think about it. Okay, the answer is the secondary focal plane. The precise location can be determined with ray tracing via the nodal point, but the golden rule to remember, and honestly the anatomical landmark for everything we're building today, is that parallel rays entering a plus lens always focus perfectly at that secondary focal point. Keep that baseline locked in your mind. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll cover the afocal optical system, Galilean telescopes, astronomical Keplerian telescopes, calculating angular magnification, lens separation and design, and finally, a high-yield OCAP review.
All right, Section 1, the afocal optical system.
We're going to construct this baseline system sequentially. Think of this as the normal physiology of our telescope. First up, our object at infinity emits parallel rays. This means the vergence, or U, is 0. These rays then enter the objective lens, which, by definition, is just the lens nearest the object. In clinical telescopes, this is typically a low-powered plus lens. And as we just recalled a moment ago, those rays converge and focus perfectly at the secondary focal plane of that specific lens.
So the definition of an afocal system is, well, literally without a focal point. Parallel rays enter from infinity, meaning U equals 0, and they exit parallel to infinity, meaning V equals 0. There is absolutely no change in vergence from start to finish. But here is the massive OCAP pearl you need to understand. Despite zero vergence change, we still achieve angular magnification. The image actually looks bigger to the patient because the angle of the light rays reaching the eye has increased, even though the light itself remains perfectly parallel. It's brilliant. Moving right along to Section 2, Galilean versus astronomical telescopes. This right here is a classic board definition. To build a Galilean telescope, also known as a terrestrial telescope, you take that low plus objective lens we already established, and you insert a high minus eyepiece lens nearest to the patient's eye. Because of how that minus lens bends the light, the resulting image is natively upright. I want you to mentally associate Galilean with a minus eyepiece and an upright image. Lock those three terms together.
Conversely, what happens if we insert a high plus lens as our eyepiece? Well, we create an astronomical or Keplerian telescope. Because we're now using two plus lenses in this system, the optics naturally flip the image, resulting in an inverted image. And this has a massive clinical consequence. To fix this inverted image for your low-vision patient, you literally have to add heavy, bulky prisms into the device to turn the image right side up again.
Okay, Section 3, calculating angular magnification. Let's look at the math. In optical physics, angular magnification is technically the ratio of the new angle over the original angle. But practically speaking, for reasonably small angles, it's approximated perfectly by this beautiful, simple formula. Angular magnification equals negative power of the eyepiece divided by the power of the objective. Take a moment to truly digest this ratio. It is the absolute foundation of all clinical telescope adjustments. Now, I want you to burn this next concept into your memory. This is a classic board trap. Ignoring that minus sign at the front of the formula is without a doubt the #1 reason residents drop easy points on the OCAP. That minus sign isn't just decoration, guys. It's biologically and optically necessary. It keeps your final magnification value perfectly consistent with our sign convention for image orientation. Do not drop the minus sign.
Let's actually see this math in action so it clicks. For a Galilean scope, you have a minus eyepiece and a plus objective, so the formula becomes negative times a negative divided by a positive. Two negatives make a positive, right? A positive magnification number tells you the image is upright. Now for an astronomical scope, you have a plus eyepiece and a plus objective. The formula is negative times a positive divided by a positive. The result stays negative, and that negative magnification number confirms the image is inverted. The math perfectly, predictably mirrors the clinical presentation.
Section 4, Lens Separation and Design.
For any telescope to actually function and maintain that afocal, parallel in, parallel out state, there is a strict, non-negotiable anatomical rule. The primary focal point of the eyepiece must perfectly overlap the secondary focal point of the objective lens. Think of this like a precisely reduced fracture in orthopedics. If these 2 points don't align perfectly, the whole system fails. This single point of overlap dictates the exact physical separation you need between the 2 lenses.
Because of that strict rule of overlap we just talked about, and because a minus lens has a virtual focal point, the Galilean separation is calculated as the difference between the focal lengths, f2 minus f1. On the other hand, the astronomical separation, using 2+ lenses, is the sum of the focal lengths, f2 plus f1. This side-by-side comparison is exactly why Galilean scopes are physically shorter and lighter than astronomical ones. The focal lengths mathematically subtract from one another, giving your patient a much more compact device to hold.
All right, let's pause for another attending-style PIM question to test your clinical reasoning. Imagine you're adjusting a Galilean telescope. If you increase the physical separation between the lenses, which, based on the optics we just discussed, forces you to use a lower power objective lens, does the overall magnifying power of that telescope increase, decrease, or stay exactly the same? Work through that formula in your head. I'll give you a second.
Did you get it? The overall power increases. Remember our magnification formula? Eyepiece power divided by the objective power. The objective power is sitting right there in the denominator. So if you use a lower power objective lens, your denominator gets smaller. And mathematically, dividing by a smaller number absolutely skyrockets your total angular magnification. Understanding this inverse relationship is a highly testable concept on your written boards.
And finally, Section 5, our high-yield OCAP review. Let's bring it all home. I want you to take a mental screenshot of this table right now. This is your ultimate clinical cheat sheet for comparing these 2 distinct profiles. Galilean scopes, they use a high-minus eyepiece, give an upright image natively, max out around 4x magnification, are small, light, and cheap, but they do suffer from a smaller field of view. Astronomical scopes, they use a high-plus eyepiece, give an inverted image, can push up to 10x magnification, boast a wonderfully large field of view, but they are physically large, heavy, and expensive, mostly because, remember, you have to add all those heavy prisms to flip the image back upright for the patient. Let's distill this down to the absolute bare essentials you must know. Number 1, telescopes are afocal systems. Vergence doesn't change, but angular size does. Number 2, Galilean means a minus eyepiece and a shorter tube length, calculated as f2 minus f1. Number 3, astronomical means a plus eyepiece and a longer tube length, calculated as f2 plus f1. And number 4, say it with me, always use the minus sign in your magnification formula to keep your image orientation straight. I'm going to leave you with one final clinical scenario to test whether you can truly translate this optical physics into real-world patient management. If you have a frail, elderly, low-vision patient who just wants to read street signs occasionally while out on a walk, which telescope do you prescribe? You prescribe the Galilean. Why? Well, because even though it has a smaller field of view and lower max magnification, it's small, it's lightweight, it's cheap, and it gives a natively upright image. Handing an elderly patient a heavy, expensive astronomical scope filled with prisms just to read a stop sign is frankly poor clinical management. Master the optics, and you master patient care. But this begs a much bigger question for our field. As implantable intraocular telescopes become more and more advanced, will we soon be putting these afocal systems directly inside the eye, rendering these handheld scopes entirely obsolete? Keep reviewing these principles, continue pushing the boundaries of your clinical reasoning, and I will see you in the next explainer.